All right, welcome everyone to this session for getting started with Microsoft Teams. And welcome to the New Zealand Business Application Summit. So my name is Mohamed Derhalli. I'm a Microsoft MVP, MCT, Scrum Master, all of these things. I'm located in Montreal, Canada, and I'm working as the solution architect lead here at Cyclotron. So I deal with stuff related to Viva, SharePoint, anything that's related to Microsoft 365. So I just tend to jump into all of this. And today's session, we're going to be focusing on Dataverse for Teams, when to use it, what benefits would you get with that, and just have a quick overview of Dataverse for Teams, how to get started with it. So I hope you would enjoy it. So yeah, just a little bit about myself, as I mentioned. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out on LinkedIn. So I'm available on LinkedIn, not that much on Twitter. So as well, if you want to check our services, we have this application for Microsoft Teams Hub, if you would like to check it out. So a little bit about Cyclotron. We're based in San Francisco with offices in across the US, Canada, and in India. And we do anything related to SharePoint or Microsoft 365 in general, Power Platform, Azure, all of these nice stuff. So let's get started with Dataverse for Teams. Enough about the introduction. All right, so Dataverse. What is Dataverse? So Dataverse is a cloud-based database where you can store, manage, govern, and react to changes on your data. So it's not like storing data in Excel. We're just buried in Excel and that's it. It's not just another database management system. It's not like SQL. It has so many benefits that you would get in order to have a real relational management database management system that you can actually deal with, and it has a UI that you can do stuff related to it. So the focus is on the data. So you store the data in one location, and then you can use this data across your environment. So the main focus is our data. That's why I like the term Dataverse. It has previous names before that, but mainly you would just store the data, have it as tables, have these columns, have relationships between these tables, but then you can use this data, you can use it in tons of applications built with Power Apps. You can use it with Power Virtual Agent. You can have business processes with Power Automate. Or you can, as you saw in the session before this one, you can report on these tables and this data using Power BI. So it's the data itself you can have, as I mentioned, you can govern that data. For example, I can set rules on this data, and these rules are going to be applied to the data no matter where I use it, right? So this is one of the benefits that you would have. You can have, for example, permissions on the data on the row level, on the column level. So it's so much granular when it comes to permissions as well. So Dataverse itself is a really robust way to start creating your data, your systems. So you will have sometimes people saying, yeah, you can create your application with a database in Excel, which is not a great idea. Always try to avoid that. Sometimes you would find solutions built with SharePoint as the backend, which would work, but it's not going to be recommended because SharePoint is not an actual database management system. If you have a small application, it would work. Otherwise, we wouldn't advise to go for that, right? So let me just go next. So what are the benefits of the Dataverse? So data is stored in a central location and can be utilized across multiple applications. You do not require extensive management in order to have to manage your data because everything is stored online. So you don't have something as Dataverse server that you need to install on your end and install patches and so on. Everything is just stored at Microsoft side, and you're good to go. The business rules are applied everywhere, and the security is super flexible, utilizing existing Microsoft 365 groups and Azure AD security groups, right? So now we talked about Dataverse in general, but what about Dataverse for Teams? What's this? You know that when you want to use Dataverse, which is the standalone product, you would need to be licensed in order to use that. But then Microsoft said, yeah, but we can have like a free flavor of this Dataverse for people to use within Microsoft Teams itself. So you know that when you're dealing with Dataverse, you would have environments. So you can have an environment for development, another one for QA, another one for UAT, another one for production. You would have multiple environments. Maybe you would have an environment for marketing where they can create their own applications, an environment for IT, environment for HR, and so on and so on. So what Microsoft did is they said, okay, we can have that for every team. They would have their own environment where they can create these applications that are based on Dataverse itself, right? So if you decide to create your applications that way, it's going to be free. So if you create your applications within Microsoft Teams, within that database, which is the Dataverse, that's given for that Microsoft Teams in that environment, small environment, that team environment, then it's going to be free. But is it going to be like completely free? So it would be free for up to 1 million records in your tables, or 2 gigs of data, right? So it's free, but with limitations. But you would have access to, for example, the Dataverse itself, so you can build your own tables. You can have an actual database management system where you can build your stuff, and you have access to Power Virtual Agent. So you can use Power Virtual Agent to build your chatbots, and it's going to follow the same security model as Microsoft Teams. So if any people like they would have guest permission or members or owners, all of like these 3 rules, then they would have access to these applications. So you don't need to manage the permissions in a different way. You can, like I'm going to show you, you can control the permissions on the tables. So maybe I'm going to have a table within my team where I don't want guests to have access to that table. You can definitely do that. But by default, you would have the owners, members, and guests that you can grant access to for Dataverse for Teams. So now Dataverse for Teams and Dataverse, they have many differences, but some of the things that I thought would be worth mentioning are like you wouldn't have access to all the data types that are available, like multiple transaction currencies and so on and so on. All of these are going to be available within Dataverse. They're not going to be available with Dataverse for Teams. To have mobile offline, that's not going to be available for Dataverse for Teams, nor you would have access to the APIs, the component framework to develop a framework somewhere, then you can reuse it across the place. It's not there. Paginated reports, the environment. So you would have 1 per team, and you have also like limitation on the number of teams that would support these environments. But with the Dataverse, you wouldn't have that limitation. The maximum size, as you see right here, the field level security. You wouldn't be able to have field level security with Dataverse for Teams. Activity logging and auditing, it's not also available. There's also like a bunch of other differences that would be there, but this is what I thought is worth mentioning for you to understand when it comes to Dataverse for Teams. So again, just to recap, you have Dataverse, the standalone one, and then you have the Dataverse for Teams. The Dataverse, you would be able to create new environments. Either it's going to be production environment, QA, and so on, or production or environments for a specific department. But with Dataverse for Teams is you would have one environment for each team. So it would have this mapping between, okay, I'm going to have an environment, Microsoft team is going to have an environment. Everything that you create within that team, like all the tables, flows, apps, and so on, are going to be scoped within that team only, right? So if you create a table called students within team A, it's going to be different from a table called students in team B, and that's because each one has its own environment that acts within that environment, right? So it's a one-to-one mapping that we would have here. Now, to get started with Dataverse for Teams, how we do it is we'll need to use Microsoft Teams, basically, but then we'll need to have 2 applications. If you want to build apps and flows, then you will need to use the Power Apps Teams application. If you want to create chatbots then you would need to use the Power Virtual Agent Teams application. So once you install any of these, you will be able to develop either like the apps and flows with the first application or bots with the Power Virtual Agent 1. So I don't like slides that much. So that's why I'm gonna just start with a demo. If anyone has any question, please feel free to ask in the chat and I'll just get into a demo. So let me just go here. And here I'm landing in Microsoft Teams. As you see, I have Viva connections available. And one of the nice things about Teams applications or like Power Apps applications is that you can use them across the place. And now with the introduction of Viva connections and the Viva connections adaptive card extensions like these ones, you can develop a card that looks like this. And when you open it on the phone, it would display your application right from within Microsoft Teams. So if I can just get maybe, let me see if I have that slide. Right here, this one. So yeah, if you see this, for example, I'm just gonna pull this presentation. On the phone, if you have these dashboard cards, if I click one of them that represents an actual Power Apps application, it will just display that Power Apps application right here for me. So this is like a great integration when it comes to Power Apps and Viva connections right here. So let's go here to more apps and search for our application in order for us to get started with Dataverse. So if I go and search for Power Apps, I'm gonna find this application right here, which as you see, I have it pinned right there. So I can open this application. And from this application, it will display this message for me that I can get started right now with developing applications, Power Apps applications for Teams. I have the recent apps that I work with. And if I scroll down, I would have all of these, I would say solutions, not applications, because some of them would just deploy multiple apps for me with tables and so on. So these solutions that I can install within any of the teams that I have, and then I have learning resources. So maybe I want to use one of these applications that exist already. So I can click on the inspection, and then maybe I want to add it to one of the teams. Now notice when I click on add to a team, it's going to display all the teams that are available for me. I can search for a specific channel because it's going to require adding that to a specific channel. So maybe I'm going to add it to Contoso marketing. So I can just add it here. The first time I add an application to a Microsoft team, it's going to take some time. And that's because Power Apps is going to generate that environment for that team. So that's going to happen the first time you add an application to Microsoft Teams. Now, other times, like when you want to add a team later or an app later, or when you want to create, for example, like a flow, or you want to create a chatbot, it's going to be quicker since the environment is already there. So you can just click on set up a tab, and now it will just go open this task module for me. And then it will start telling me that, hey, I'm now deploying your application. In this case, like the inspection application is a solution. So it's a bunch of applications at the same time, 3 applications, I think. So now let's just wait for it a little bit. And I highly suggest if you're going to use Dataverse for Teams in the browser to use Edge. Many times when you're using Chrome, it's just going to keep on crashing. So if you're going to be using Dataverse for Teams, just make sure that you're using Edge in the browser or just use the Teams client. So now let me just go here, go back again to this one. It's just taking some time. You just go back here again. Try to add it to a different team, General 8, Project 8. Save. Maybe I'll need to refresh the browser. Let me just refresh and see what's going to happen. All right, so it's saying the app is getting installed, and as you can see right here, installing the app to the channel. So if I go to a team where I already installed that, so you're going to see right here that I already installed the application, and it's actually a solution that deployed 3 applications at the same time. So if I go to manage inspections, here I have, like I would have a bunch of tables in the backend. All these 3 applications are going to deal with the same database, right? So I have all of these apps at the same time right here, and all of these apps at the same time right here, and all of them are going to read from the same database. So here, as an inspection manager who is going to define the inspections categories in the back end, so my frontline workers would use, I would have it right here. Another application for the managers, they would review the inspections, and another one specific to the frontline workers where they can initiate these inspections. And as you can see right here, these controls are the new Fluent UI controls that are available with Dataverse for Teams. So when you're using these controls, they're going to pick the design and look and feel of Microsoft Teams, the color, and so on. So as you can see right here, like when you're using these Fluent UI controls that are available by default within Dataverse for Teams, it's going to look like it's a native Teams application. So as a frontline worker, I can just go here, start the inspection, choose the location, and then start the process. When I submit my record right here, it will go to the database, a flow would run, and then a manager would get a notification, and they would open the review inspections application, and they will check that. So this is just like an example of how a Dataverse for Teams Power Apps application would look like, how everything is done in the backend. So let me go to Power Apps, and if I go to the Build tab right here, if I go to this one, I will see all the teams which had at least one Power Apps application created within these teams. So all of these that you see right here are basically environments, right? And if you go to the Power Apps Admin Center, you go to the environments, you're going to see all of these environments listed there as Microsoft Teams environment. So you're going to see these in the Power Apps Admin Center right there, and I can see them right here. If I switch from one to the other, like if I click on this one, I can see all the applications that are built by this team or installed applications. So for example, if I go to the design, I can see here that I have 2 apps. But if I go to installed applications, I can see that this solution has 3 apps and 11 tables right here, right? So this is like basically an actual solution that got installed from that main menu that I had here, and it added all these 3 applications for me with the 11 tables right here, right? Now, what can we do in order to create a new application? Let's say that we want to create our own app. So if I want to build my own application, I would just go to the environment that I had. As you can see right here, I already created an application and a flow in this one. That's why in this team. So if I go to teams, I will find that there is a team called New Zealand right here that's available for me. Now what I can do is I can go to Power Apps and say from the home page that I want to create a new app, right? When I want to create a new app, it's going to ask me in which team do you want to create this app? Which environment do you want to use? If I select a team that never had an application built for before, it will auto-generate that environment for me, and it will appear in the Power Apps Admin Center. If I choose an existing team, that means it's already there and it's going to be quick to create that application. Or you can just go to the Build tab, and here's an issue that you might face from time to time. If I go to the Build tab right here, I can see all the teams, and from here I can create my application. So it's going to be the same scenario, right? So here, let's say that I was creating like a conference registration system right here. But what we're going to do as part of this demo is let's create this application to recommend an award for a colleague, right? So I'll just name it as Contoso Reward Center, right? And this is going to be the name of my application right here. Oops. Let's just wait for the app to be created. And now I can just zoom in a little bit. And now it's going to tell me, do I want to create the app from a layout or do I want to create it from data? So for me, I want to design my data first, and then I want Power Apps to just auto-generate that screen for me, right? So what I can do is I can say, okay, I want to start from data, but I don't have data already, right? So what I can do is I can create a table. So I'm just going to create a new table. I'll name the table as reward request. And as you can see right here, if I go with this one, it will show me the plural name of that table. So I'm fine with this. So now I have the reward request. I'm just going to keep it simple for this one. So what I'm going to add is I'm going to add the employee, the name of the employee. I'm just going to leave it as free text. I'm just going to have it as required. Save. And you notice I'll show you something, how the new UI is making it super advanced. Before you were not able, from this quick edit for the table, you were not able to go to all of these settings. You needed like to go to the classic editing experience to get access to all of these fields, but it was updated recently. So employee, I'm gonna have the manager for the employee. I'm just gonna have the manager here as well. I'm gonna save. And I'm gonna have the amount. How much do I would I like to award this employee? So I'm just gonna have it as full number, and this one is gonna be required. Save. I'm gonna have justification. So let's have justification, and this one is going to be, let's have it as text area, and let's leave it as optional. And the last thing is I need the approval status because the manager might reject that. So approval status. And this one is going to be choice, yes and no. And by default, it's going to be a no. And yep, save. Now I have my table. If I click on close, what we're going to have is we're going to have Power Apps generating the UI for us. Right? So let me just close this one. Let's zoom in and I can see that I have 3 columns in a form. So if I go to the right container, there's an edit form right here. And in the left container, I have the gallery right here. Right? So what can we do? Let me just open the properties here again. And what I can do is I can say, you know what? I want it to be 1 column. So now I have all of these as 1 column. Some changes that I would like to do is I don't want to have the approval status. Like I don't want to show it in the form. I'm going to show it in a different way later. So I'm just going to hide this one. And this one is my unique ID, the name itself. So I'm just going to hide this one as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll edit the fields. I'll click on this one, remove, and I'll click on the approval status and remove as well, right? Now we're gonna get back to the name later, but I'll just keep it as this for now. For the justification part, I'm just gonna expand this area a little bit, and I'm gonna click on this one. And what I would like to do is I'm gonna have it multi-line, so it's fine right here, multi-line, because I had it as text area, so that's fine. So I can just expand it like this, and there it is. What I can do as well is for the amount itself. So the amount itself is going to show as a number, right? But what I can do is I can have a formula right here to display it in dollar signs, right? And in order for me to change this, as you can see, like this area right here is just disabled. It's in gray. And that's because I would need to unlock this whole card that you see right here. So what I can do right here is go to advanced, unlock to change the properties. Now, when I click on this one, now it's white. I can edit this area. So if you go to the Power Apps documentation, you're going to find that there's this nice function called text that would allow you to format text, add some stuff to it. So in this case, I want to format the value right here to be in dollar sign and to have this as the format. So if I type, for example, 20, it's going to be 20.00, and it's going to have the $ on the left-hand side of the currency. So if you check the text function in the Power Apps formula reference, you're going to find how to do such things. So you can just copy paste that one, right? So that's for the amount. What we can do as well is, all right, so what we want to do is we want to get back to our name field. So I'm just going to save this. And if I go back, click on build right here, I can find my, let's just go to see all to see everything that we have. So if I click on see all, I see everything. I can filter by the tables, show me only the tables, and here I have my table. So if I click on my table right here, I can find this one. I can edit the name. So edit this column. And if I go to the data type, I can say auto number. So every time I create a new record, this one is going to be incremented. So I can just start from 1 and take it from there. So the first time I submit a reward to someone, it's going to be 1. Second time is going to be 0002, and so on and so on. Now I can just save. And now we dealt with the primary key for our records, right? Now it's going to be saved automatically. Note that you see here, I'm in the table itself. Let's say that I have like a bunch of tables within my environment. If I go to manage permissions, you're going to find that the members, guests, and I can find like, there's something like in Dataverse for Teams where I can share with people outside of my team, right? So here you can see that members, they would have full access. The guests, they would have private, so they can create new records. They can read their own records, update or delete their own records. So they're not going to be able to have access to anyone else. But you can like play with these, and I can share the application with another group outside, with only one group outside of your team where you can have access to. And you're going to see it like typically in companies where they have one group that's called like Power Apps users, where you can just share the application with this group from different teams. So you can manage it that way. So now if I go to the applications again, I find my Contest Reward Center right here. I can go back to this one. And now we want to have a way to search for our user from Active Directory, right? So I don't want to type the username by hand. I want to get a way to search for users. And we do that by using a combo box connected to the Office 365, the Office 365 users data source. However, in order for us to have flexible combo box, if I go here and search for combo, this combo box is the new one, the one with the Fluent UI. The Fluent UI controls are going to give you that nice look and feel. They have their own properties, but you would find that they're limited in many of the other properties that they would have. And for the purposes that I need to have in this one, I would need to use the classic combo box in order to be able to search for users. I will need to have that. So in order to enable the other classic combo box, you see this sitting menu right here, like the gear icon. I would need to click on this gear icon right here. Under upcoming features, I can click on upcoming features and then experimental. If I click on experimental, scroll all the way, search for something called classic controls, and here I can enable classic controls. You see in this area right here, this one appeared, right? So now if I search for combo, I have the classic combo box. So now what I can do is I can open this area for the employee, and I can have the combo box. Now you see it's asking me to unlock this card in order to add stuff to it. So I'm going to unlock this card and add this combo box right here. So let's just have more space for us. Drag it down a little bit. And now we have our combo box. I'll just expand this and change the name to CMB for combo _ employee. I'm going to do the same thing with the manager because I want to also search for a manager. You can have it like to search for the manager automatically for the current user, but just for the sake of time, let's just have it like this and CMB manager. Oops, CMB manager. And now we have our manager right here. Now, how can we connect this to be searchable from Microsoft 365? Now I'm going to click on data sources right here. So if I click on data sources, I can search for Office. If I add data, I can search for Office 365 users. I can add this data source, and it's a free connector for me to use. So I can add this one, and it's available for me right here. Now what I can do is, if I go back to my field right here, the items that I want to have is, I want to get me from the Office 365 connector, this one, go and use the action that's called search users. If I don't provide you with anything, get me all users. If I start typing, just get me whatever I'm typing in this combo box, CMB employee, get me the search. So here, as you can see, like I have this JSON object with this property search term, I can pass it the search that I'm writing here. So I can use this formula for this one. I can use this formula also for the manager combo box, but I would need to change the CMB underscore manager. So now we connected this one. So now if I search in any of these, it would display the names of users. But we have a couple of things to do. You see on the right-hand side, if I click on fields, I want the primary text that's going to be displayed in the result. I want it to show me the display name for users. And I want, when I search, what's going to be passed here. I don't want to pass the city. I want to pass the display name. So I want to show the display name, and I want to pass the display name to the service. Same thing right here with this one. I want to show the display name, and I want to pass the display name to the service, right? Another thing that I want to do is I don't want to have multiple selections. Like I want to have just one manager, and I want to have only one employee, right? Now let's see how it's going to work. So let me just open new record, and here it's displaying all the users, and I can select one, right? Displaying all the users, I can select one, which is great for our case. Now, how can we deal with a scenario where we select a user on the left-hand side, because here we're going to find all the users, and I want to populate this one and this one with the current user name and the manager name. In that case, there's a property on this one that's called, the default selected items. So here it is. Default selected items is, I want to say, if I have a record that's selected right here, get me that user and display the information here. Otherwise, just don't display anything. And for this, I have this formula that I already built. If my mouse can let me select. So now I can just paste here. Let me just go like this. All right. So here basically I'm just checking if it's a new form. If it's not a new form, then just keep it as blank. If not, then go and get me the employee itself, search by the employee, and get me this presentation, which is I'm going to get the claims, the department, the email, and so on. And this is going to be the content of my field right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing right here. If it's a new form, then display nothing. Otherwise, go to default selected. Where's the D letter? Default selected items. Otherwise, go to the Microsoft 365 users connector, search for the user, and pass the employee ID. In this case, we're going to pass the manager. So I'm just going to copy this, have it here, and get me the display name for that manager, right? So get me the first, that's going to be the display name. I'm just going to get the claims. This formula right here, like this object is the one that you would need to use in order to pre-populate it with a value. So this is like a presentation of a claim in Microsoft 365, where it's going to contain the display name, the claim itself, which would have this presentation. This is like something standard in Microsoft 365, the claim that you would need to use, department, and so on and so on. So you would need to use this object if something is selected on the left-hand side, right? Now that we have this in place, if we select something. Now you see right here, there's this area because I have for this gallery, I have image, title, and subtitle. So I would know that I have title and subtitle right here. What I can have the title, or like, let's start with the subtitle. I'm going to show the amount that the user was awarded, right? And for the name itself, or like the title that we would have here, what I'm going to have is, I'm going to have this formula. And this formula basically is, go get me the employee itself, the employee that I would have, which is basically is going to have the email for that employee, but pass it to the Office 365 service, get me the first result with that email, and then display the display name. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm passing the employee email to the Microsoft 365, getting that first user, and then display the name. It's going to be displayed right here. Now for the image, we're going to do something similar for the image. And what we're going to have is, we're going to have this. Same thing. Go to the Microsoft 365, pass the employee email, and no, for the image, felt like we're going to get the. This is for the display name. For the image, we're going to use the user photo v2. As you can see, it's right now, it's messed up because I don't have any record yet. So keep that in mind. I'll fix it in a second. But first, let's get this thing. I want to have just a nice presentation right here, just a random circle, push it all the way to the right-hand side. And I want to change the fill property of this one to show like green, blue, or green. So I have this nice color that I prepared on this side. And let's have a look at this one. So if the approval status equals to yes, if it was approved, then show it in green, otherwise show it in orange color, something like that. So we would have it right here. Now, let's fix this. Stop suggestions. Let's fix this. Now we have two records right here, or like two fields. What I can do is I can delete this one. I don't need it. And this is going to give us issues on the card itself. So let's fix them. I can see that it's expecting a value right here, but I know that the value is going to come from the employee, the selected one from this combo drop down, and I'm going to get the email. So this is the email I'm going to be using. And here, we're just going to go with the employee, CMB employee. Oops. And I'm just going to use it right here. Now let's just fix the look. I'll just drag it a little bit to the top right there. Shrink the card a little bit. So I'm just going to have it like this. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one. Let's delete. Let's shrink it a little bit. Fix the issues. And here I'm going to have, in this case, not the employee, it's the manager value. So here, since it's not a text box, it should be the selected, and it should be the property of mail. And here, this one, we're going to fix this one to manager. And this one is going to be manager as well. And now let's just drag this a little bit to have it like that. And let's always save. We don't want to have it crash after all of this. Now, let's just test it. new record, find an employee. Let's say I'm going to go with Adele. I'm going to go with the manager myself since I'm just signed in. And let's go with 300. And she's awesome, something like that. And submit. And there we go. You see the presentation as dollars right here, the name of the record selected, and here is Adele's picture. Now, since there is a record, our apps now understands that there is a value right here. Right, I can just make it a little bigger, maybe. Yeah. All right. So now I have the record in the backend in the database. I have it saved, but there is no approval, right? So what we can do is I can go back to this area. I can go to see all. So now I can see all the stuff that I built in this New Zealand business application team. I can click on new and I can create any of these things that I have right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with automated for the flow and Contoso reward approval. So I'm just going to have that. And let's see, created. I want to have that Dataverse record created. So when a record created, where's Dataverse? So Dataverse, there it is. Microsoft Dataverse, when a row is added, modified, or deleted. So it's just like one, basically like one trigger that would ask you about all of these operations. So I can have it either created, deleted, or update, or a combination of created or delete, and so on, or all of them together. In my case, I want to have it when I create a new item, a new record in that table. Now it's going to ask me like, which table do I want to have? So I can just the reward requests, right? So remember that if you have multiple teams environments, this table is unique to each team, right? It's not going to be the same team. And here you can just like go with this one organization. Now what I want to do is once I add a record, I want to have it go through an approval process, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to new step and let's just, okay, I got it, and create approvals. I have here 3 actions for the approvals. So what's the difference between all of these actions? This action is going to create an approval, and then I can do other stuff, and then I can then wait for that approval to be approved. This one is going to start the approval and wait. So it's going to just keep on waiting. So this one is like 2-in-1, but it's going to keep hanging there. You can use the create an approval to create the approval itself, then just make the flow do something else, and then wait for the approval. So what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to use this one. And you have here like the approval type. So the approval type is wait for all responses, wait for one response, first to respond, or everyone must approve, right? So I can just go with this one, which is going to be basically because it's going to be one approval. So first to respond is going to be the same thing. So everyone must approve. And here I can say new reward request submitted for, and here I can get the person name. So how can we get the person name from here, right? How can we get the person name from here? In order for us, because we only have the employee name, we don't have the person, we have like the employee ID, which is in this case, remember, we made it bound to the email itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an action, user. I'm going to search for user, and then I'm going to search for get user profile. So get user profile, this one. I can pass the email for that user right here. So in this case, I can pass the employee. Now I got the user. So here I'm just going to rename it to employee info. I got the employee info right here. Now in this one, I can go to the employee info and get the display name, right? Assigned to, here I can choose the manager from the record that was submitted. The details, I can just get the justification right here, and I'm good to go. Now what I can do is I can wait for the approval. But which approval? I might have like 4 approvals that were added. Which one do I want to wait for? I want to wait for this one by approval ID. Now, when this one is approved, this wait is going to be done, right? So you might have like multiple approvals that took place, and you want to wait for one of them. Next, I want to check what's the status for that approval. So here I want to check the outcome. Since here, this one is going to be approve, reject. You see, approve, reject. This is going to be my outcome, either approve or reject. So I'm just going to say if it's approved, right? If it's approved, then I want to do something. If it's rejected, then do something else. So if it's approved, what I want to do is I want to update that row that was submitted, right? So I want to update, where's my Dataverse? I'm just going to search for Dataverse. Update a row in Dataverse. So which table? Let's search for our reward request. And for the row ID, the row ID is going to come from a unique identifier that's going to be named after the same table. So here, reward request, as you see, unique identifier for entity instances. I can choose this one. Now I'm going to keep everything the same. I'm going to expand this one, but the approval status, I'm just going to make it as yes. What I can do right now is I can just copy this to the clipboard, go here and to my clipboard, and I'm going to paste it in under the no section. And under the no section, I'm just gonna make it as no. Since it's the default, I didn't have to do that, but maybe I want to have like some comments, like if I have like more fields to set for the manager, I can like grab that information from the manager and then have it right here. But in this case, you don't have to. Now, what I would like to do as well is I would like to submit a card to the team that, hey, someone like to celebrate that someone was approved for a reward. So what I can do is I can say post an adaptive card in a channel. And right here, I'm just going to go with user and post in a channel. But this channel is under which team? So here I need to choose the team. And in this case, it's going to be the New Zealand team. And then the channel itself is going to be the general channel because that's the only channel. And then we have the adaptive card. But how can we do the adaptive card thing? So if you go and search for adaptive cards.io, so adaptive cards designer right here, you go to the designer, which is adaptivecards.io/designer, you would choose your target. So my target framework is going to be Microsoft Teams. And notice that when you change the target application, it will change the version of the JSON that you would have, or like the schema. So here I have 1.4 for Microsoft Teams. If I go with something else, like maybe this one, 1.3, and so on and so on. Make sure that you have at most 1.4. If you have like a newer version, it wouldn't work. So just make sure that you're in Microsoft Teams right here. You can see that the sample data that I have here appears right there. So if I change this one to 123, it's going to change 123 right here. If I change this one in this area, anything like related to the properties, it will change my sample data. But I would have my placeholders right here. This is the JSON that I would be interested in. This is it. And as you can see, anything that's going to be variable, like the image here, is going to appear like prefix with $sign, same thing here, like the name, and so on and so on. So what I have on my end is I have created something like this beforehand. So let's just go here and look at it. So as you can see right here, I would have the person name, display name. I would have the amount. And I also have this GIF or GIF, however you want to pronounce it. So I have it right here. So the display name, what I'm going to do is just scroll all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to have the display name that's coming from that connection. And I'm going to have the amount. Also, I'm going to have it from my record right here. So I have the amount. Now I'm going to be good to go and save it. And then we can test it right now. So let's see how it would go. Cross your fingers. And still saving. Let's go to the build tab. Let's open our Contoso Reward Center. This is our Canvas application. Now what I'm going to do is, since I saved it, I'm going to publish it to a team to be used. So to a specific channel within my team. So here, if I say publish, let's just wait, publish. Yep, that's the name of the application. I'm fine with it, fine with the icon. And now I only have the general channel. So I'm just going to create a tab right here, clicking on the plus, and then I'm going to save it. Now, when I go to Microsoft Teams, let's go here, go to New Zealand. I can find the Contoso Reward Center right here. So let's open this one. And there we go. I can create a new record. So let's have it the same thing. Or let's have Alex in this case. I'm going to have myself as the approver. And I'm going to say 500. Alex was too good. And submit. Now, note that the first time that you use approvals in your flow, it's going to take some time for the approvals to be added to your environment. So the first time a flow runs that uses an approval within your environment, it's going to take some time. So let me just see if, okay, I got it. That's because just before this session, I created just, I'll show you what I did just to speed things up because I'm too smart. Let me just show you some. So here, if I go to this one, see all, I just created before this session, created this instant sample. In this instant sample, I just made it to start manually. And all it did was just create a flow, create an approval. And that took some time for the approval to run, but because I didn't want to wait during the session itself, right? So just be aware of this fact. Now, if I go to my email, I'm going to find this card added in my email. I can see that, hey, Alex was too good. This is the justification. I can see the title of my approval, and here it grabbed the name of Alex. I can approve here. I can catch this with during my flow, submit it to the database. But what this is going to do is it's going to mark that record to be approved. Now, if I go to Microsoft Teams, I go there, I can see that Alex right now is approved. If I go to posts, right now I can see that Alex is approved, and I have this GIF appearing in my team. So that's like how you can utilize Dataverse for Teams. You can build all your stuff in the backend, build nice applications like this. You can also, like here, let's go here. What you can do is you can utilize the Power Virtual Agent to virtual agents. You can utilize this application to develop a new bot. And when you want to develop this new bot, it's going to ask you under which environment. So same thing, under which environment, and then I can choose this one. I can create my chatbot right there, publish it to my users in order for them to use within Microsoft Teams, grab information from these tables, and so on and so on. And it's free to use. If you want to do it this way, it's going to be 100% free to use, but with these limitations, the 2 gigs and the 1 million records available. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, I'll be around for a little bit. And yep, thank you so much for your attendance.
Mohamed, yeah, great demo. I think it's so great to see, in such short time, you've actually built a complete end-to-end, even production ready almost, solution. With real flows, adapted cards, and not so. Just imagine the power of Dataverse for teams, right? If we just spend a little bit more time, what you could do, right, and add value quick to,
Absolutely.
It's really, wow, really powerful.
Yeah. As like someone focusing on Teams, Viva stuff, and so on, I just go always grab stuff from the Dataverse for Teams, try to see like what it can do for us here. So I find myself like always, like clients, they're focusing on Teams, but all the time, we have this application, we have this, can we do this, can we do that? So we're always like going around into Dataverse and all of these Power Platform stuff, which is really incredible. Like people would think they have to go custom all the way, but if you leverage these things, especially like it's free, no one, like not no one, but not many people would know that it's free, especially like on the customer side. So it's really good.
Hey, I got a question for you. So you mentioned before in the comparison between Dataverse for Teams, a standard Dataverse. So on the actual size, so what happens if you're reaching the limit?
What happens if what?
If you're reaching that Dataverse table size.
You can always upgrade to the actual like to the standalone Dataverse, but that time you would need to have like you would need to pay for it. You can always like upgrade. Yeah. It's at the end like it's just an environment within the Power Apps Admin Center. It's just an environment. It's like when you're creating a sandbox and then you want to convert it to production and you want to use it. You can always like upgrade it to an actual Dataverse, and then you're not going to have these limitations.
So, thanks again. Thanks everyone for attending this session. Very impressive to see in such a short amount of time what we could do actually.